April 1945. The thunder of Soviet artillery echoes through the streets of Berlin as the Red Army fires thousands of shells into the heart of Nazi Germany. In the governmental districts, buildings crumble under the relentless bombardment. The Third Reich, which Hitler boasted would last 1,000 years, is dying in the rubble of its capital city. Deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, in a concrete tomb known as the Führerbunker, the final act of Nazi Germany's horrific drama is unfolding. Here, in these damp, oppressive corridors, death hangs in the air like smoke. Above ground, in the Chancellor's garden, makeshift crematoriums burn the bodies of the regime's leaders. The acrid smell of petrol-fueled flames mingles with the stench of defeat. Among those trapped in this underground mausoleum is Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's master of propaganda, the man who helped create the cult of personality that plunged the world into war. But now, as the Reich crumbles around him, Goebbels faces a choice that will define his final hours: escape or loyalty unto death. Joseph Goebbels had spent years crafting the image of Adolf Hitler as Germany's savior. As Reich Minister of Propaganda, he had poisoned the minds of millions with his carefully orchestrated campaigns of hatred and nationalism. His silver tongue had helped seduce a nation into following a madman's vision of racial supremacy and continental domination. But by April of 1945, the propaganda machine had run out of lies convincing enough to mask reality. The Allied armies were closing in from all sides. Hitler's other lieutenants were either dead, captured, or desperately trying to save themselves. Hermann Göring, the Reich Marshal and head of the Luftwaffe, had been declared a traitor for allegedly attempting to depose Hitler. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, was secretly negotiating with the Allies, claiming authority he did not possess. As these pillars of the Nazi hierarchy crumbled, Goebbels found himself ascending to unprecedented power. In the final month of the war in Europe, he had become Gauleiter of Berlin, responsible for the city's hopeless defense. Unlike his fleeing colleagues, Goebbels made a fateful decision. He would move his entire family into the bunker complex. Magda Goebbels and their 6 young children, Helga, Hilde Helmut, Hold Hedda, and Hyde, all took up residence in the Führerbunker, the upper section of Hitler's underground fortress. In these dark, damp rooms that reeked of diesel fuel and despair, the Goebbels family would spend their final days on Earth. On April 23rd, even as Soviet shells fell ever closer to the bunker, Goebbels continued his duties as Gauleiter. In what would be his final public address, he called upon the people of Berlin with words that now ring with tragic irony. "I call on you to fight for your city. Fight with everything you have got for the sake of your wives and your children, your mothers and your parents. Your arms are defending everything we have ever held dear and all the generations that will come after us. Be proud and courageous, be inventive and cunning. Your Gauleiter is amongst you. He and his colleagues will remain in your midst. His wife and children are here as well." These words would prove prophetic in the most horrific way imaginable. Inside the bunker, Goebbels witnessed the final disintegration of the Nazi leadership. On April 29th, he served as a witness to Hitler's marriage to Eva Braun, a bizarre ceremony conducted in the shadow of imminent death. In Hitler's last will and testament, Goebbels was named Reich Chancellor, with orders to leave Berlin and establish a new government alongside Admiral Karl Dönitz. But for the first time in his political career, Joseph Goebbels chose to disobey his Führer's direct orders. For reasons of humanity and personal loyalty, I feel compelled to stay with him. The children could have been evacuated. There were opportunities to smuggle them out of Berlin to safety, but Magda Goebbels refused every offer. She and her husband had made an unspeakable decision. They would not allow their children to live in a world without Hitler and Nazism. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life. His body, along with that of Eva Braun, was carried to the Reich Chancellery garden and burned in a petrol-fueled pyre. Goebbels, along with Martin Bormann and other surviving Nazi officials, offered a final Hitler salute as the flames consumed their leader's remains. The death of Hitler shattered what remained of Goebbels' world. Witnesses reported seeing him wandering through the Chancellor's garden in a daze, hoping that a Russian shell might end his misery. He was heard to say, "It is a great pity that such a man as Hitler is not with us anymore, but there is nothing to be done for us. Everything is lost now, and the only way out left for us is the one Hitler chose. I shall follow his example." As the new Reich Chancellor, Goebbels performed only one official act, dictating a letter requesting a ceasefire to Soviet General Vasily Chukov. The letter was delivered under a white flag, but the request was rejected. The Soviets would accept nothing less than unconditional surrender. On May 1, 1945, Joseph and Magda Goebbels made their final, unforgivable decision. They arranged for its dentist, Helmut Kunz, to sedate their 6 children with morphine. Then, as the children lay unconscious, cyanide capsules were crushed into their mouths. Magda Goebbels had dressed her children in their finest clothes and carefully arranged their hair for this final, horrific act. The children, ranging in age from 4 to 12, had no understanding of what was happening to them. They simply went to sleep and never woke up. That evening, at approximately 8:30 p.m., Joseph and Magda Goebbels said their final goodbyes to the remaining bunker inhabitants. Hand in hand, they climbed the concrete steps leading from their underground tomb to the raked chancellery garden above. They knew they would be dead within minutes. What happened next remains a matter of historical debate. One account suggests that both husband and wife bit down on cyanide capsules near the very bomb crater where Hitler's body had been burned, a location chosen for its ceremonial significance. The poison would have killed them within 3 minutes. But Goebbels had also arranged for S-Adjutant Jew Entherschuh German to riddle their bodies with bullets afterward, ensuring they were truly dead. Another account claims that Goebbels, armed with 2 pistols, shot his wife in the head after she consumed the cyanide, then turned the weapon on himself, mirroring Hitler's final moments. The bodies of Joseph and Magda Goebbels were hastily doused with the remaining petrol and set ablaze. But most of the fuel had already been used to burn Hitler and Eva Braun. There wasn't enough to reduce the Goebbels corpses to ash. They burned only partially, then were left forgotten in a bomb crater in the Chancellor's garden. On May 2, 1945, Soviet Red Army forces stormed into the raked Chancellery complex. What they discovered would become one of the most haunting images of the war's end. In a bomb crater just meters from the air raid shelter, they found the charred corpses of a man and woman. The man was of small stature, his right foot twisted in a semi-folded position, still wearing a charred orthopedic shoe. On his body were the remains of an NSDAP party uniform and a fire-damaged party badge. 2 Walther pistols lay near the heads of both corpses. Joseph Goebbels' body was still largely recognizable, though much of the skin had been burned away from his arms and legs. One arm was raised high in the air, frozen in death. His face bore an expression of pain, teeth gritted in a final grimace. When Soviet soldiers moved the body, charred skin flaked away like old paint. His distinctive orthopedic shoe, a metal device he had worn since childhood due to a deformed foot, was still attached to his body. Some of his clothing remained, including a white shirt. His hair had been completely burned away, revealing a badly scarred scalp. His eyes remained tightly shut, as if refusing to see the world that had rejected his twisted vision. The remains of Magda Goebbels were more severely burned, but the Soviet forces quickly gathered both bodies and brought them into the raked chancellery. There, on a makeshift table, Soviet generals and soldiers viewed the corpses of Hitler's most loyal disciples. The children's bodies were also brought into the room, 6 small forms in white pajamas, looking as if they had simply fallen asleep. The contrast was horrifying. The charred, monstrous remains of their parents lying next to the peaceful faces of the innocent victims of their fanaticism. The Soviet Union quickly published photographs of Goebbels' corpse, using the harrowing images as proof of Nazism's final defeat. The body that had once housed one of history's most poisonous minds became a symbol of the Third Reich's utter destruction. The remains of the Goebbels family were eventually interred in a facility in Magdeburg, along with other Nazi officials who died in the bunker. But even in death, Joseph Goebbels could not find peace. In 1970, 25 years after his suicide, his remains were cremated one final time. His ashes were scattered in the Biedritz River, ensuring that no shrine could ever be built to honor his memory. Joseph Goebbels had spent his career crafting lies so compelling that millions believed them. He had helped transform Germany into a machine of conquest and genocide. But in the end, even his masterful propaganda could not disguise the truth of Nazi Germany's moral bankruptcy and inevitable defeat. The discovery of his partially burned corpse in a Berlin bomb crater stands as one of history's most fitting endings. The man who had poisoned minds with beautiful lies, dying ugly and forgotten. His body a testament to the ultimate failure failure of fascism. Today, Berlin has risen from those ashes to become a symbol of democracy and human rights. Where once the Reich Chancellery stood, there are now apartment buildings and parks. The bunker where Goebbels spent his final days has been sealed and forgotten, buried beneath a parking lot. But the lessons of those final days in April and May of 1945 remain as relevant as ever, a reminder of where hatred, propaganda, and blind loyalty to authoritarianism inevitably lead.